We're back here at the American Kickoff. We've talked to every single head coach and 2 players from each team. I don't know about you guys, but I learned a ton so far. I am fired up for football season. Let's reintroduce ourselves because we haven't even talked about who we are. We have Lige Duzabul, Rini Angolia, and I'm Maria Tribal-Peace here in St. Petersburg, Florida. The commissioner, Tim Pernetti, is going to join us here in just a moment so we can pepper him with questions, just like we have been doing with all these head coaches. But, guys, what stood out to you so far today about everybody we've talked to? Oh, well, look at Tim's joining us right now. You ready? Sit down. We're going to go
ready,
right
man.
now.
He just comes in game ready.
All right.
But I heard somebody talking about questions and peppering. Let's go.
Well, Lige's favorite moment of the college football season is when he gets to talk to the commissioner, Tim Pernetti, and ask him all of the hard-hitting questions.
You need to aspire for bigger things than
It's a highlight of my day, man.
I love that. So one thing that I loved about today, we were just talking about what stood out to us, was when your daughter got to introduce you on the podium. Can you tell us what that moment was like for you?
Yeah, hard to describe. You know, when I really first started working in sports, it was funny. We were looking for the camera. Oh, there's the camera.
There's the camera.
All right, now we're going to smile. When I first started working in sports, what I loved about the industry was that it's one of the few industries that really gives you true access for your family. And when I was athletic director at Rutgers, my 2 sons were younger, and they were on the charters with the teams and ball boys, and they would be moving the shooting machines out in the gym. Like, they just took full advantage. My daughter was really little, you know, at that time. So she's really a great supporter of my career, and it takes me away from her a lot. But she mentioned, she's like, I'd really love to come to Football Media Day. I was like, well, if you're coming to Football Media Day, you got to have a role. And I said, what do you think about introducing me? And of course, you know, as most 19-year-old girls do, it just, that's easy, no problem, no problem. She rehearsed her line, I'm good, Dad, stop talking to me about it. And then I think she got a little tight before she went up there, but I was really proud of her. Listen, I don't know how long I'll have a job like this, but it was a core memory for me to see her up there. It was emotional. My entire extended family watched it, and I thought she did a great job.
She did.
We were literally in here. I was like, wow, she nailed that, because I know how nerve-wracking it is to stand up in front of all those people, and then you have to present, and you want to make sure that it's right. And it's her dad, too, so that was so much fun to see.
Proud moment.
Yeah,
She was awesome.
That. So cool. All right, you ready for your hard questions
Ready.
now?
Yeah,
that was the layup. That was the easy question.
Let's do it.
All right, Protect College Sports Act. You've been a leader in Washington. The whole American Conference has. How important is it for you to have a voice there, and what makes this act so important?
Well, I don't think this is about my voice as much as it is about me having the opportunity to be a voice on behalf of the conference. Not everybody is getting this opportunity to be part of it. And I said it during my opening comments today. One of the great things about this conference is people want to talk about the sports and the football and all that, but is who's in the league and what doors that opens. And like it or not, like Army and Navy have really opened the door to a lot of new relationships in Washington. And I also think that, coupled with the fact that we have unapologetically talked about change for 2 years. It doesn't need to happen or not. Somebody in the hallway was like, you've said outrageous things. I'm like, I haven't said anything outrageous. I've said things that are different. So our presidents are stoked at the idea that we're in the room, that I got asked to be on President Trump's commission, that I've had an audience with a lot of the senators, that we've had actual input into the bill. Like, there are things in there. I get phone calls all week, like, Tim, we're thinking about revising this. What do you think? I appreciate that people in Washington are getting a broad perspective rather than just taking the perspective of certain conferences. Like Senator Cruz and Senator Cantwell and Senator Schmidt and Senator Coons, they've kind of led the way. They got guts, right? Because this is a controversial thing. Yeah. I don't think it's the only opportunity left in eternity to get things right, but like, we have everybody's attention with influence on college sports right now. Like, let's get our arms around this thing. If we can create a more national sustainable framework, I think it's going to help us solve the core challenges we have, whether it's transfers or eligibility. Like, there's great stuff in there that we need, and there's probably also stuff in there that needs to change. Like, there's no bill that's going to be perfect, but I'm really encouraged by the progress. Like, the next couple of weeks are going to tell us an interesting story.
And you mentioned change. Let's just talk about the change in the American. You launched Rise Ventures, a lot of great hires as well. Where is this conference headed?
Up. You know, that's where we're headed. And from the beginning of this thing, you want to achieve big things, right? If you are motivated to be successful, like you want to hit big ones. But it's hard to temper that along with just getting on, like, if you hit big ones, it could be like the stock market. You hit big, you hit low. But we want to get on a trajectory of growth. So that's where we're headed. We're headed up. Rise Ventures is not, it's just about a year old. It doubled our commercial revenue in a year, actually in about 11 months. Our goal for this year, like, we're 80% of the way there. So what we've done is we've modernized how we operate commercially, because conference doesn't have a ton of assets, right? You have your championships and your events. So what do? We're not just going to sit on the assets we have. We're turning on Soar the Eagle. That's intellectual property. We turn on a tailgate tour. That's new intellectual property. We create innovative relationships with brands in healthcare and in ticketing. This is a place, I tell brands this all the time. I was with the CMO recently, and he's like, Tim, we have some crazy ideas. And I said, and I should be your first phone call. Mm-hmm. Like, we're willing to do things differently. And I also think when you're a brand like ours, you can't get out there and talk about guts and talk about risk and talk about doing things different if you're not ready to walk the walk. So we're really pleased with Rise. It's only a year old. We hired a new chief brand officer this week, and Erin McVeary. She's going to be a dynamite addition. But just in general, we're going up.
Tim, we've been saying this, and you know this, I've said this for the last 2 years. I feel like the American Conference has been the strongest Group of 6 conference in all of college football. But when you look at it on the national stage, right, 3 teams with 11-plus wins. It ties second with the Big Ten and the Big 12. What does it say about the competitive nature of this conference?
Deep. You know, just competitive depth. And this has almost become a drinking game. I say competitive depth over and over again, but it really is who we are. Mm-hmm. And you rattled off some of the stats, but when I wake up November 10th last year and we have 6 teams that can still compete in the conference championship game, yep, you have competitive depth. Yeah. Yeah. And I look at those stats where you're comparing it to other conferences and number of wins. Our coaches said it all day today, like, this is a tough-ass league to win in. Yeah. It just is. So when you have 6 teams in November that are in the hunt, it says a lot about our competitive depth. The second thing is our teams will schedule. If I could talk to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee and they said, like, what's one thing we should pay more attention to, I would say how we schedule. Like, we're not afraid to line up and play against anybody. Yep. And that's a really important part. And, you know, look, the reality is I understand how transfers impact the league. Yeah. I understand the coaching transitions. Mm-hmm. But we've got a blueprint in this league that works. Yeah. We find them, we invest in them, we develop them, and it creates life-changing opportunities, whether here or elsewhere. And I said this earlier. I think the ecosystem needs the American to be strong, especially the autonomies. They're playing us. They're recruiting our student athletes and supplementing their rosters, and they hire our coaches as their leaders.
Without a doubt.
And that's all good.
Yeah, it's a compliment.
We're proud of it.
Yes.
And by the way, people are like, can you believe? And I'm like, of course I can believe it. We're loaded with talent. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what's impressed me the most is how we reload. Yeah. Like, we have a continuum of success even given all this stuff. So if this legislation can put more guardrails around some of the challenges, like, watch out.
Yeah. 10 college commissioners. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm right on this. You're the only former college football player that's a commissioner.
No, we got one other one. My colleague Keith Gill.
Oh, Keith Gill played. That's right. At Duke. Sun Belt.
And listen to this. We realized in a recent college football playoff meeting that we played in the same game against each other.
Look at that.
Oh,
so we had a Duke-Rutgers series where we played terrible for 3 quarters up at the old Giant Stadium. And then, long story short, they started to give the game away, and we won the game on a field goal recently. But no, Keith and I are the ones in the room.
But he wasn't a tough tight end like you were, though.
Oh, he definitely was. I don't know. He was a running back. I'm sure he was a tough running back, but we have that to distinguish.
I'm curious. Obviously, as a commissioner, it's all sports. Mm-hmm. Football takes a majority of the talk, right? When you go in rooms. As a former player, though, in all seriousness, do they lean on you guys at all in terms of, you talked about, everyone wants to change everything, but there's a schedule and there's a lot of things that go in place. I'm just curious, as a former player, if they lean on you in terms of the former player perspective.
They do, and I really love that part. And I said it during my comments today. Like, I never coached, outside of youth football, I never coached football, but I think the underbelly of the entire sports business is relationships.
Yeah.
And I learned that early on. I worked for a great guy when I was at ABC early in my career, and I started dealing in college sports. And I remember he sat me down and he said, get on planes, visit people, eat steaks, play golf, smoke cigars. It's a relationship business.
Yes.
He said, and then when the business at hand comes up, trust will be in place. Our coaches are on my phone regularly, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because they want to know where we're going as a conference. They need help. They need advice. They need counsel. And I'm really flattered by that. I think it speaks to the relationships. On all the other sports, it's important that you show up.
Yeah.
You know, over my first 2 years as commissioner, I've been at a dozen other Olympic sports championships to watch, to hand out trophies, to talk to kids. It's important that you show up. Because like I said in my comments today, Olympic sports are why the whole model matters.
Yes.
Right? It's not just about, now, to your question, I do spend a lot of time on football. And at the end of the day, football is the engine in the car that's going to drive the entire business.
Yeah.
And I say that unapologetically.
Correct.
It's not that it's more important than anything else.
It's factual.
It just gives us the greatest chance at success.
Talk to us about the American Tailgate Tour. It's bringing a new fan experience to the American Conference.
Well, we heard you were going to show up and do keg stands.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it.
The American Tailgate Tour is another thing born out of Rise Ventures. And as I said, part of it is like you can come into this and say like, let's roll up all our commercial business. But the reality is like you got these things in your commercial business that are established. But in order to really have a vibrant business, you have to create along the way. So the Tailgate Tour is just about trying to bring the brand and an experience where fans already are. So this will be a really neat deal. Like it's going to be mobile. It'll start at Temple in September. It'll travel into Florida twice in November. It'll be at our championship game, but it's a mobile experiential deal for fans. LLH Healthcare came on to support it. Our trophy will be there. Our helmet wall will be there. We'll have former players from the schools showing up. It's just another opportunity to capture the spirit of game day. And it's, since I know you're going to ask, because you probably be at some of the games, we're going to have good food and drinks.
I love that. I was about to say, man, what the menu look like.
Well, you're the cook, Lee J, so maybe you could whip something up for the tailgate tour. Yeah.
See, now we got a celebrity chef element
Yeah.
that we can bring
Have
on
you
board,
seen
too.
his videos? Go check out his social
Oh,
media.
I watch his social media. I don't know what I
Golf
enjoy.
and food, baby.
Yes.
I don't know what I enjoy watching more, the food or his golf swing,
That's
which is
right.
pretty
Oh.
smooth.
It's coming along.
It's
Hit
pretty
that
getting
little
better.
baby cut.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, Lee J.
I want to go back to the Protect College and Sports Act just because it is so important. And you said these next couple weeks are big, and you're a prominent voice. Are you optimistic that it can get done? And if not, I still call him Coach Tuberville. Tommy Tuberville, who's the center, has a more narrowed bill that may be able to get passed. Does that help at all? Like, I want to kind of feel you out there.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge with all of this stuff is getting distracted. And you had the SAFE Act, and then you had the SCORE Act, and now you have the Student Athlete Act, and you have the Protect College Sports Act. Is at some point we need to narrow our focus on what we think is going to have the greatest impact and create long-term sustainability. Like I personally, I'm a little sick of the uncertainty, the Band-Aids, the litigation and all that stuff. So Coach Tuberville is not wrong in his assessment that there are two core issues that are really having a dramatic impact on the industry. But beyond that, there are other important things. You know, like those two things are also in the Protect College Sports Act. Agent oversight and capping commissions. The liability protection so the state courts can't undercut the ability to enforce national rules. Reinforcing education and student athlete benefits. So, you know, to me, if we've got everybody's focus, let's create the most expansive thing we can that will have more long-term impact. But what I would say is whether it's Coach Tuberville or any other senator or congressperson involved in this, I've spent a lot of time with these people. They really have good intentions. Right? It's just about making sure we're all educating each other and landing the plane smoothly.
Tim, I look at it like this. You brought this up. The American Conference is a brand, especially for coaches coming in. You guys aren't losing coaches because you're losing games. You're losing them because other conferences are poaching them, right? Which stinks, but that is the layer of college football we're in right now. Just talk about some of the new additions that have been brought in. Brian Hartline, Charles Huff, who's had success at Marshall and Southern Miss, Will Hall, and then Neil Brown. And then obviously Alex Mortensen was there, but he gets the interim tag taken off and becomes the head coach. Just talk about why the American has been so attractive for coaches to come in and have a lot of success.
Well, number one, I think we have a really strong national profile as a conference, and the reality is we've had a lot of success in this league. The next thing is, and this came out of, I really admire our presidents and athletic directors for getting behind some things that we pushed, like we're going to be a conference that has a minimum investment in student athletes. That really showed itself in football last year.
Sure.
Like the competitive depth that was created had a lot to do with investment. I love the fact that, like, some of these coaches that you just rattled off had other job opportunities, including in autonomy conferences. But the reality is, like, landing a guy like Brian Hartline at USF is a tremendous statement about where we are as a conference and the investment that they're making. And their new stadium is coming online next year. You know, Mort, I was at his first game when he was the interim, where he shows up and he beats Memphis. And, you know, there's a guy who's just, he brings this unique blend of being an analytical guy and a football coach, and he understands the media. You know, I think he's really going to be a different model than what people are used to seeing. Neil Brown is a proven winner, and him coming into North Texas, like, a lot of that roster walked away, but, you know, he'll bring a great impact. I love Huff.
Yeah, me too.
You know, he's, when we got the call about a coach going to Washington, D.C. to be part of the conversation about the bill, we put Coach Huff out there, and he just absolutely dunked on people's heads when he was there. You know, I thought he did a terrific job. And Will Hall is a big part of the reason they've had so much success at Tulane. You know, but like you said, I celebrate, and I got beat up on social media last year. Like, when our coaches left, I congratulated them and I thanked them, because the reality is they did make a contribution to the growth in the American.
Correct. And
the reality is, like, we can create and develop and make those opportunities for others. But you know what? We don't fall off. No. We just reload. And I think we've done it again in coaching this year.
I think reload is such a great word, and a lot of the coaches use that with their rosters this upcoming season. But I want to talk about what you've been able to do at the American, especially this past year. You talked about Rise, you talked about the new hires, but what are you most proud of that you've been able to accomplish at the American so far?
Well, I don't know. I wake up every day wondering how I got in this job, because I never really anticipated that I would have an opportunity like this. There's a lot to be proud of, but it's like a we, it's not a me. Because listen, I get to have the job and be more forward-facing and be the leader. And when things go well, you get pat on the back. And when things don't go well, more often, you get blamed. Like, commissioners get blamed for everything. That's part of the job. But what I'm most proud of is that when I interviewed, I told the presidents that if you don't have an appetite for change and for risk and to get crazy, like, you don't want me here. What I'm most proud of is that they said all the right things when I was getting an interview, but they've walked the walk. You know, and not only have the presidents walked the walk, ADs have walked the walk, coaches have walked the walk. And I think I've made them nauseous with some ideas and some things that we want to do, but it's distinguished us. Now, I won't use that term that they refer to all these conferences, because I don't feel like we're in the autonomy, and I don't feel like we're in the other group either. We have created a lane and separated ourselves.
For the viewers, in case you're wondering, yes, we are saying group of 6, because now there is 6.
Hold on. They're saying group of 6. I didn't say
well,
that.
he's not, but it's just a way. So there is a 6 conference now. The new Pac-12 is now a non-autonomous conference. In your mind, though, is the American still positioned to be the best group of 6 conference, even because a lot of people want to talk about this new Pac-12?
You know, I haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about other conferences.
Sure.
I think that when you do, you can fall into a trap of wanting to be like someone else.
Okay.
And I always say the same thing to everyone in our league, whether it's a coach or I talk to all the student athletes today. We're not trying to be anybody else. In fact, I think there's others out there that are trying to emulate what we're doing. We're just trying to be the American. We're trying to do from everybody else. And I think the reality of how the landscape is changing in the future, like, we got to come up with a better way. You know, like, maybe all of this traditional, like, take from that guy who takes from this guy who takes from her, I don't know if that's sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because the reality of where we're headed is we need to work together on everything, and that creates, you know, divisiveness along the way. But I think it's very clear. I won't talk about where I think we're positioned. I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Whether you look at it from the beginning of the college football playoff to now, and you sort of parse out, like, who was the top conference in that group in each of those years? 80% of the time it's been us.
Correct.
Yeah.
Last year, I told a friend of mine who's athletic director at James Madison, I said, last year, you're one loss away from us having 2 schools in the college football playoff.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in general, I think our performance speaks for itself.
But I just to follow up, and I know you talked about it, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. You're adding more non-autonomous conference teams, but you need that access in the college football playoff that everyone's talking about.
You do, and that's one thing I think we universally agree on.
Yeah.
We don't. The college football playoff meetings, like I'll take the mystery out for you guys. People aren't throwing food across the room and getting in fist fights in that room. You have commissioners and people of Aqua from Notre Dame and the CFP staff. There's a lot of people working in earnest to try to get it right.
Yeah.
But it's just so hard because it's like the fans. 16 is the answer. What about this? 24 is the answer. When are you going to play all these games? What about Army Navy? Are there conference championship games? What are the media economics? So, well, hold on a minute. But what I put out there today was, not sort of like a quotable, but if we're going to double the field, then you should double the access for the group of 6. Yeah. Why not? Right? Because if we're going to create an inclusive thing, like based on the general parameters, there would have been 3 of those teams in it last year.
Right.
So I do think it's important that I support an expanded playoff so long as it creates more access for everyone. And at that point, Renee, we're happy to earn it on the field. We've said that from the beginning, and we will continue to stand by that.
Love it.
This conference has earned it on the field. Tim, we thank you for joining us. I hope we didn't give you too many difficult questions.
Well, sorry, I just sort of crashed in there mid-TV show.
I think it made it fun.
You guys were kind of talking trash, and I heard you from over there.
Well, we had to, we had that. Well, that's why we had to speed you up to get you here. Like we had to make sure you got here on time.
We just play it loose in the American. Like, no structure. Let's just go. Well, I appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you out there this year.